All right, if you're here to revise the core geography of Pakistan, you are in exactly the right place. We are about to go on a deep dive, looking at the country's incredible mountains, its powerful rivers, and the rains that feed them to see how it's all connected. So, let's get right into it.
Think of this as a journey we're taking together. We're going to start way up in some of the highest mountains on the planet, trace the water all the way down through the vast sun-baked plains, and follow it right out to the sea. And along the way, you'll see how the land itself, the very ground, shapes absolutely everything, from the weather patterns to where millions of people call home.
So, this is really the big question we're tackling today. This isn't just about memorizing the names of mountains and rivers. No, it's about understanding that deep, powerful connection between the land, the climate, and the water, and how those three things together really write the story of a nation.
Okay, first things first, we have to start with the foundation, right? And that's the lay of the land, or what geographers call its topography. You can think of this as the stage, the physical stage on which this entire story plays out.
So what is topography really? Well, it's way more than just how high or low the ground is. It's the whole package: the steepness of a mountain slope, the width of a river valley, the flatness of a plain. And these features, they're the ones that control where rivers are going to flow, where all that good farming soil ends up, and, ultimately where people can build their lives.
Now just look at this. We are talking about an absolutely massive scale. This is where three of the world's mightiest mountain ranges, the Karakoram, the Himalayas, and the Hindu Kush, all smash into each other. But these aren't just mountains. They are, for all practical purposes, the nation's giant water towers. All the snow they catch in the winter and the massive glaciers they hold act like these enormous frozen reservoirs, slowly releasing water that feeds the country's rivers all year round. It's incredible.
And where does all that water go? Well, as it flows down from the mountains, it spreads out across the great Indus Plain. And you can see here, it's really a plain of two halves. Up north, in the upper plain, you've got the Indus and its major tributaries creating these super fertile strips of land between the rivers, which are called doabs. But as you go south into the lower plain, all those rivers have merged into one single mighty Indus, which gets wider and slower until it fans out into this huge delta before it finally meets the sea.
Okay, so we've got these dramatic landscapes, right? From the highest peaks on Earth to these huge flat plains. So the next logical question is, how does all of that shape the country's climate? Let's see how it all connects.
To get a grip on Pakistan's climate, you absolutely have to understand the monsoon. And it's so much more than just a bit of heavy rain. It's a massive seasonal weather engine. In the summer, the land heats up way faster than the ocean, and that pulls these winds loaded with moisture inland from the sea. And those winds carry the rain that the entire agricultural cycle of the country completely depends on.
But here's the kicker. Where does all that monsoon rain actually fall? This is where topography comes roaring back into the picture. As those moisture-packed winds sweep inland, they slam into those towering northern mountains and have nowhere to go but up. As that air rises, it cools down, and that cooling process literally squeezes all the moisture out as heavy rain on the southern slopes. By the time the air makes it over the top to the other side, it's basically bone dry. This creates what's called a rain shadow in places like Gilgit and Chitral. The mountains literally block the rain from getting there.
Now, what's really fascinating is that Pakistan's water supply kind of has a backup plan. The summer monsoons, they're the main event for sure. But in the winter, a totally different weather system shows up. These are called Western depressions, storms that travel all the way from the Mediterranean Sea. And they bring crucial winter rain and, importantly, snow to the western and northern areas, basically topping up those mountain water towers for the next year.
All right, so let's connect the dots. We've got the mountain water towers, and we have two separate rainy seasons that keep filling them up. So where does all that water end up? It all flows into the nation's lifeblood, the Indus River system.
And there it is. It's really that simple and that powerful. The Indus and all its tributaries are the direct result of everything we've just talked about. The heat of the summer melts the snow and the glaciers up in the north at the exact same time that the monsoon rains arrive to swell the rivers even more. It is the perfect, powerful combination of topography and climate, all coming together to create one of the world's most important river systems.
But of course, there's a challenge. All this water doesn't arrive in a nice, steady stream. It comes in seasonal bursts. So to manage this boom and bust cycle of water, Pakistan has built one of the most extensive and complex irrigation systems anywhere on Earth.
So how does it work? Well, you can think of it as a giant three-step plumbing system.
First, you have enormous dams, like Tarbela and Mongla. They act like giant reservoirs, capturing and storing all that water from the monsoons and the snowmelt. Then you have barrages, which are like low dams with gates that divert the river water into the third step, a massive network of canals that can carry that water hundreds of kilometers away to farms and otherwise dry regions.
But, and this is a big but, there is a serious downside to this incredible feat of engineering. Many of the older canals aren't lined with concrete, so water constantly seeps out into the ground, raising the underground water level, or the water table. In the hot baking sun, that water evaporates, but it leaves behind the natural salts that were in the soil. And over time, this builds up into a white salty crust on the surface that literally poisons the land and makes it useless for farming.
So let's bring this all home. We've looked at the mountains and the plains, we've looked at the climate and the monsoons, and we've looked at the water systems, both natural and man-made. Now for the big question. How does all of this complex geography actually shape the way people live their lives across the country?
This table is a fantastic summary for revision, so pay close attention. You can see a direct link between the land and the life it supports. In the steep, rugged northern mountains with their long, cold winters, people practice transhumance, moving their livestock up and down the mountains with the seasons. Contrast that with the flat, fertile Indus Plain, which can support intensive farming and, because of that, a really high population density. Then you go to the arid Balochistan Plateau, and life adapts again with nomadic herding. It's a perfect illustration of people responding directly to their environment.
And let's finish on a really important thought for the future. This relationship between the people of Pakistan and their land is thousands of years old. But what happens when one of the key parts of that equation, the climate, starts to change rapidly? How does a nation whose lifeblood is literally written in its mountains, rivers, and rain adapt when the timing of that rain and the melting of its glaciers can no longer be predicted? That right there is the critical geographical question for the years to come.